Hey guys, I'm back in the kitchen. Well, that's where I spend all my time. Between that, it's a good opportunity for me to watch YouTube videos while I'm doing my messing around in my kitchen here. But today what I'm going to do is celery was on sale. And I picked up 4 nice stalks of celery today at the grocery store. And what I do when I find items on sale is I go ahead and stock up if they're things I'm going to use all the time. And I have never canned celery. I hear you can do it. I don't think that's anything I don't think I would like that. I don't know, of course, but what I do is I dehydrate it. And of course then it'll keep forever if stored properly. But it never lasts that long around here, and that's why I've got to keep doing it. I use celery quite a bit. I'll show you, I'll just explain it as we go. Alright, I'm going to try something a little bit different that I learned. I used to take it all, wash each stalk individually, and someone said, go ahead and chop it up and then wash it really good then. Well, that's just one less step because I do that anyway. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the ends off here. See if I can get it back far enough y'all can see. I suppose y'all know how to do that. I'll just go ahead and try to move my camera down here and chop the ends off. And I'm starting a collection here of all my ends and pieces and stuff, and there's some bad ones in there. This was also another recommendation I just heard. Made perfect sense. When I make my broth, and you've seen me make beef broth, I do put vegetables in. And same while I'm cooking down the bones and stuff. And same with when I make, you know, any kind of broth, chicken broth, whatever. I believe I'll use a few of these in my onion broth when I make it. But for now, I'm going to do the same thing as with my onions. When I get this all done, I'm going to wash them up, throw them in a gallon Ziploc baggie, and throw them in the freezer. And when I'm ready to make broth, I've got this. And I don't have to waste good celery. I can use this stuff. Okay, let me point out. I already got a Band-Aid. I've done 3 stalks so far. And what I have here is a bowl of water. I've got my mandolin slicer. And just another lazy thing I do. And yes, it's dangerous. By the way, I did bring extra Band-Aids. I always cut my fingers, but I'll try not to be too bloody and gory for y'all. Okay. This is so quick, guys. I'll show you, this is the setting that I have it on. Not too terribly thin, but I like it. And I'm just going to go through and slice these up in my bowl of water. Oop, getting close. I go as far as I can. I save the leaves. I've always cooked with the leaves. Such good flavor. I dehydrate them right along with my sliced celery. Okay. I usually go down a little bit further, but just so I can move this video along. Then what I do when I get down to where it's pretty short, which is usually, I'll have about maybe 2 inches left that I don't want to cut my hand off with. And then I'll just slice it up. And by that time, I'm usually down to the leafy part anyway. And I've noticed if I run the leaves through my mandolin slicer, that sometimes they're just too chopped up. I don't want them that chopped up. So, I'm going to add this to my, can of water. And I'm going to keep on keeping on. And I'll be back when I get all my celery sliced up. I've only got a couple more stalks to go. I think this bowl, by the time I'm done, this stainless steel bowl here is going to be full of celery. Alright, let me get this done. Well guys, it's about 2 hours later. Yeah, I had an incident. Good news, I still have 3 fingers that haven't been cut. It's not as bad as it looks. I just sliced the tip of my finger off. And if anybody's ever done that, they just don't quit bleeding. That's why I've got it packed so tight. And, you know, sometimes these boogers will ooze for a couple days. So anyway, what I've got is a pot of boiling water. And this is about half of my celery. I've rinsed it. It's in a colander. And now I'm going to pour it in this water. Next thing you know, I'll have 3rd-degree burns. Anyway, I've got that all in there. And it's going to, I'm going to bring it back up to a boil. And just let it boil for just a few minutes. The reason you want to, what's this called? Blanch your vegetables, your dehydrated vegetables, is that they will, heavenly glow. You want to do that because they will rehydrate a lot easier if you blanch them. I've done it without blanching and you can do that, but the celery just doesn't taste as good and it doesn't rehydrate as well. So I'm going to put the lid back on that. That's my pressure canner because I canned up a batch of beans yesterday. We had run out with all my Mexican cooking. So anyway, I'm going to put the lid back on and I'm going to let it come back to a boil, let it boil for a couple of minutes, and then we'll be back. Okay guys, I got this pot of celery. It's back to boiling. Look how pretty green that is. Anyway, I'm now going to take it out and then put it on my dehydrator. I'll get set up so I can show you how I do it. Okay, I've got my dehydrator tray stacked up over here. And because the celery dehydrates down to such a tiny, tiny piece, I've got like fruit roll-up trays and, let's see, some of these mesh trays, and I also use parchment paper. And parchment paper, for tightwads like me, remember, free and cheap, it can be washed and reused. So, another neat little trick I learned, put something over the hole of your dehydrator so you don't have to deal with it falling out. I'll be back. Okay. I forgot what I did with this big thingy. Typically what I would do is dump the water out into and let the celery go through the strainer, but I want to reuse this water for the next batch. Ouch, this is hot. And there's no need to cool this down. It's going to get hot anyway on the dehydrator. Somebody asked me what brand I have. I actually currently have 3 dehydrators. I used to have 4. I sold one. I may regret it later, but we'll see. I think American Harvest is the brand of all of them. But, oh, that's water. It's a Nesco. Whoop, left the lid in there. Nesco brand is this particular one, and the 2 that are in my basement are American Harvest. And I do believe that Nesco bought out American Harvest. So that was my daughter stepping in. I'm not sure what. She borrowed something, I think. But anyway, I'm going to keep filling these trays and I'll be back. Well guys, I got the I think there's, well, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 trays on my dehydrator. And all I got to do now is there's the brand, by the way. I'm going to set it at 135. And I'll let it run overnight, and we'll check them in the morning and see what they look like. Okay, well, it's the next morning, and I think it's been like 15 hours. I did get up early this morning. I'm going to unplug my dehydrator. I did get up early this morning and restack my trays. In other words, I moved the trays that were on the top, I moved them to the bottom, and I just rotated. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. So, I don't know if you remember, but these were full. All of the celery was actually touching. And look how much it shrivels up, because celery is mostly water. Now, I've still got pieces that haven't dehydrated, so I'm going to leave it in here a little bit longer. And I'm going to go ahead and go through, because I think I've got a couple of trays that might be done. But let me check, and we'll come back and check it. I'll show you what I found. This tray was on the top this morning, in this tray here. So I had moved them to the bottom. They were almost done. But when you pick up your celery, and if it's still pliable, or anything you dehydrate, if it's still pliable, it still needs to be dehydrated. So these two bottom trays that I thought might be done are not. Then I actually rotated again. These trays, I have maybe 3 trays that were right in the middle. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of the celery that hasn't dried hardly at all. And what else is on the tray is still pretty pliable. So I'm going to put these back in the dehydrator and let them go. I'm sure it's going to be probably a full 24 hours these are in there by the time they get completely dry. And then I'll show you what we have at the end. Okay guys, I'm going to go ahead and explain to you what I did with about my mandolin slicer and why I cut my hand. It's nobody's fault but my own, and I know that. I get in a hurry, and I'm pretty impatient. Okay, my mandolin slicer, this is the blade. I wish my kitchen knives were half as sharp as that thing is. Try to set it up so you can see. Mine comes with attachments that I can pop out and change for different depths of what I want done. It does have a guard. I don't like it. I can't work it very well, and I get in a big hurry. And when I cut my thumb, and it's not bad at all. It barely just, you just kind of sliced off the top of the skin, and just a little band-aid, barely bled. And typically I'm very careful. I usually do cut my hands a little bit, but nothing like I did last night. So guys, if you use one of these, they are extremely sharp. Do not let young kids use them. But what I did, it looks worse than it is because I sliced the side of my little finger, like right there. I sliced it, just sliced the skin right off. And you all saw about how thick I was cutting my celery, so that'll give you an idea how much I sliced off. There's nothing they can do about it. I didn't go to the emergency room. There's nothing that can be done. So all I did was I held pressure for probably an hour, and those kind of things will ooze and ooze and ooze. And I couldn't get it to quit, so I put a gauze on it. And in true kitchen fashion, I've got 2 or 3 paper towels wrapped around the gauze really, really tight. And then I taped it, and then I put this purple, we have a lot of this. They use it at the hospital. You can buy it in farm supply stores. It's just vet wrap. But, and then I wrapped it on there basically so that to keep any blood out, and wrap it around your hand like that just to make sure it'll stay on your finger, otherwise it just falls off. So it's not as bad as it looks by all this bandaging, but I do want to keep it, and any nurse will tell you this is what they do. I just want to keep pressure on it and held tight for, oh, I don't know, what's it been, probably 15, 16, 17 hours, something like that. And I'll take it off. The old farmer had to run to town. When he gets home, we'll take it off, and I'll probably redress it, and we'll just see what it needs. But it's my own fault. Too bad it didn't get my crooked finger, huh? Maybe I'd go in and they could straighten that up. But anyway, all's well, no worries. People who play with sharp tools sometimes aren't very sharp. Okay, I thought I'd show you. I've already dumped the pile that I had there, and it went into this jar. So, I simply, it's just easier for me to put it on that parchment paper, but I'll show you one tray. Look at that. All that celery dehydrated down to just, I don't know if that's even 1/4 of a cup, maybe 2 tablespoons. And then I just put it in this jar. And I do have a vacuum sealer for jars, and I have a little bit in another jar over there. So I'm going to go ahead and vacuum seal this after I get all the celery in it. But that will be, I'm going to call it 5 big stalks of celery, because the 2 that I had cut up before I showed you guys were full of bad pieces, and so I probably only got half of it. But all of that celery is going to fit in this one little pint jar. So 5 stalks of celery will dehydrate down that much. And this stuff won't go bad. I am also going to make some celery powder, because I have the original recipe for Chex Mix from back in the 50s and 60s. And I've already got onion powder, garlic powder, and I'm going to make celery powder, and that way it won't be as salty. And if you're interested in seeing how I make Chex Mix with that old recipe, let me know, or at least I'll share the recipe with you. My mom got it way back when us kids were little, so like I said, it's a recipe for Chex Mix from the 50s or 60s. All right, when this is all done, I'll show you how much we end up with. Okay guys, the celery's done. And those 5.5 stalks of celery dehydrated down to 1 full pint jar. I got my seal-a-meal out, vacuum sealed the jar, and now it'll be going up in my cupboards here. So this stuff won't last very long, because I do go through a lot of celery, and I love using dehydrated stuff. But one thing I'm going to do now, this is some of my celery from, I don't know, a couple months ago that I did. And I'm going to go ahead and make some celery powder. I had friends save baby food jars for me. I prefer glass over plastic. I heard they're going to quit using glass. They're going to go to all plastic, but I don't know. Anyway, so they saved baby food jars for me, and I'm going to make just enough to fill this one. This would be a meat jar, so it's a little 2-ounce thing. And then I'll have my garlic powder for when, or excuse me, my celery powder for when I get ready to make my Chex Mix. Okay, I think I've told you guys before that I have several little coffee grinders that I grind up spices and what have you. So I'm grinding up some of this celery that I already did from a couple months ago. I'm going to make celery powder, so it'll be ready for my, when I get ready to make Chex Mix. I've already ground up some. It looks like it's going to be about right because I think that recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of the celery and onion and garlic stuff, 2 tablespoons each. I've got my little glass baby food jars that I've asked friends to save for me. Got me a little funnel here. And I'll just fill this jar until it's probably just up to here. To tell you the truth, it's probably going to end up using all this, but that'll be a good thing, and then it's gone. All right, get this uploaded. Oops, sorry guys. Here you thought it was over. Sometimes all the whatever you're grinding, your spices, whatever, you're going to have larger pieces. Sometimes that doesn't bother me. I don't care. Other times I want a fine powder. So I've just got a little tea strainer here, and I'm running that through there. I don't know if you can see, but I've got a really nice fine powder now. It'll be perfect for cooking. These bigger pieces, I'll probably just put them right back in with my dehydrated celery, because they should rehydrate with no problem. Anyway, I wanted to let you know that if you grind up your spices and find that they don't all turn to powder, that's very common.